Welcome back to the Ohio MMA podcast. I am your host, David McKinney. Joining me on today's episode is Mr. Alex Aleko. Poinar, how you doing?
Oh, I'm doing great, man. Just hanging out in between training sessions. Excited to get on this podcast and talk to you, man.
Yeah, so you actually are out in Vegas. What's the weather like out there? I'm sure it's heating up in the summer.
Oh man, it's been ridiculous like the past 3 weeks, and this week's been the hottest. It's literally like you can look at the weather right now. It's 110 degrees every day, and like it's pretty relentless. So, in the past couple weeks, it's been like that. It's usually like that until about September. So it's pretty crazy hot. I'm loaning for a Ohio thunderstorm right about this time.
Actually, just drove through a thunderstorm not too like 20 minutes ago. So be careful what you wish for.
Right, exactly. But I mean,
um,
it's nice though, because like your walk around weight stabilizes a lot easier and stuff. It's not that hard to lose weight out here, obviously.
yeah, that's what I was going to ask if you use any of the heat for for your benefit to help cut weight and things like that.
Yeah, I mean, naturally, just like how hot it is and like how hot it is in the gym, like your weight just drops a lot as it is to the point where I almost have to like try and keep on weight so I'm not walking around too light and all that stuff. But it definitely it's really nice compared to like being in Ohio when it can be cold all the time. Like I can go on a walk outside and break a pretty good sweat just from how hot it is and stuff. So it definitely helps with that. It's definitely helped with like weight maintenance and all that stuff. Like I said, sometimes I have to like try and keep weight on.
Yeah, yeah. Enough about the weather. But so you're originally from Ohio. You're from North Canton, and you now live in Trenton, Vegas. But actually, you're returning to Ohio for the second time in your pro career. July 13th, Made Men Promotions live MMA at Neo 3, which that's a mouthful. But you will be the main event taking on Baby Hawk David Wilson. First off, man, what's it like being able to get back into Ohio? I know this is actually your second time being able to come back as a pro, but what's it like being able to live and train in Vegas and return back to your roots in Northeast Ohio?
Oh man, it's a crazy big blessing because like my support system back home is unreal. Like, I mean, it's such a blessing getting to come home and showcase everything to everybody that supported me my entire life, really, because I've always been involved in martial arts or wrestling or whatever, and everybody supports me. So it's a blessing to get to come back home and showcase all of that stuff. And my first 5 fights, actually, no, yes, my first 5 fights were all like in enemy territory in their hometown, like across the country and all that stuff. So like getting to come back to Ohio and be in front of my home crowd and stuff like it's such a blessing, man. I'm so excited to get to do it again and such a big showcase fight too. So I'm really happy about that.
Yeah, and I was actually looking at your record. You've been fighting now. You made your amateur debut way back in 2013, and I actually was looking at it. I was like, I was at that event, and I remember the fight you won in 44 seconds via arm triangle at Big RFO Big Guns 12 in Mansfield. Does it feel like you've been fighting for over a decade? And what's like what's how do you feel like the journey kind of has been? I know you had. I think it was 7 amateur fights, and now you have 7 pro fights, so 14 fights and around 11 years. But what's do you ever reflect back on that? Like, man, that I was so young. I wish I would have like done X Y Z when I was 20, whatever. I think you were 20 or 21 when you made your debut.
Yeah, I mean, there's obviously things there like you want to go back and be like, oh, I want to fix this or that. But if my journey didn't go how it was, then I wouldn't be in the position that I'm in right now. So it's like everything kind of happens for a reason. Uh, I mean, I did have like some areas of inactivity because I started businesses and stuff at the end of my amateur career and was like coaching at a high level for high school wrestling too. So that kind of made me inactive a little bit towards the end of my amateur career in the Ohio, the Ohio the laws or whatever in Ohio to go pro were like a little bit stricter, so we were struggling to go pro and struggling to find like an amateur fight to like for a belt to so I could go pro like towards the end of my career. So like maybe staying a little more active towards the end of my amateur career might have helped me, go pro a little bit sooner. But like I said, everything happens for a reason. Everything plays out for a reason. And like I've wanted to stay a little bit more active as a pro, since I came out to Vegas and stuff. But it was like 2 months after my pro debut, the pandemic started. And then I had like 2 or 3 fights scheduled during the pandemic, and they all fell through because of, my opponent got sick or the card had to get canceled because of like a spike in cases and stuff like that. So that was almost like, 2 years of fights kind of falling through and stuff, and it was out of my control, so it's nothing I can really do. But I'm excited to, be able to be active now and, keep my streak going and all that stuff right now. And yeah, it does like sometimes it's like, damn, I have been doing this for a while, but I've been in martial arts since I was 6 years old. So it's kind of who I am, and I'll, be involved in it for the rest of my life some way or another.
Yeah, and you have really, been around a lot in your pro day or in your pro career. You have 7 fights. You made your debut in Indiana. Then I know you had a couple fights out in Utah, and then you had a fight in Louisiana, and then back in Ohio. But you've actually also had a little bit of a streak. You won 2, lost 3, and then you've won your last 2. Is there anything that you changed after those 3 losses in a row to get back on the winning track?
Yeah, so I changed a few things up with training, just like how approached it and all that stuff. Like as far as that goes, I started working with a nutritionist and dietitian that is also doing like my strength and conditioning, and I think that's been super beneficial, so I could get more out of my training. And then I also brought in a new head coach. He's always kind of been around the gym, but we started working with each other more before I broke that losing streak and got back to my winning ways. His name's Danny Davis, and he has almost 30 pro MMA fights and has been in Vegas his entire life. And like, he has a plethora of experience. He's actually Sean Strickland's head coach too, if that says anything. And just like his IQ for the game, he was a professional kickboxer, and he's a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt under Robert Drysdale. So like, he has a plethora of knowledge for like all the individual aspects of mixed martial arts and the game as a whole. He has over 30 fights. So I started working with him before I got back to my winning ways, and we've kind of just had some really good chemistry, and we're going to keep building on what we've been doing. It's really only the start. So
Yeah, that's a name that goes way back. I think, yeah, I remember seeing him fight on like a Strike Force card or something like
yeah,
way long ago.
yeah, he fought for Strike Force and World Series of Fighting and PFL. He made it onto the Ultimate Fighter, like passed the tryouts and made it past the tryouts, and then was training for it before he went to the show and broke his ankle. So like, he would have been on the Ultimate Fighter too. I mean, if you look at the guys he fought, like he fought really, really good fighters his entire career. So like, he has a lot of experience, and I'm grateful to, be able to work with him and that he keeps an eye on me and stuff.
And so I know also you live out in Vegas, but I've noticed a couple of fighters from Ohio have actually been out there and done their training camps. Most recently, Asher Frederick. What's it like to be able to get to kind of be like a base for fighters that have maybe want to see what the next level is like, and get out of their comfort zone, to be able to have kind of you there to help kind of guide that a little bit. And I know Asher, for example, was out there, I think, just briefly for his last fight that fell through, but he spent his entire training camp for this one. What's that like, kind of being the I guess not really elder statesman, but the I guess kind of the base out in Vegas to have fighters be able to come out and visit and do their training camps?
It's just another one of those blessings, and like, my end goal is to come back to Ohio with everything that I've gained from here and give it back to Ohio MMA one way or another. Because I mean, I've got to see everything out here in Vegas, from being parts of world championship fights to just being on the mats with like Francis Ngannou and Eric Nixick and all those guys. And I want to bring everything back to Ohio. But now, like, the best way I can do it is like, if somebody wants to like really jump into the deep end and see what it's like and get their feet wet with the best guys in the world and the best coaches in the world, I can be that middleman and help them get out here. And yeah, Asher's came out twice now. He was just out here for a couple weeks. He went back on Sunday. And like, Asher, that's a funny story as it is. He hit me up for like a year and a half to train consistently. And I would always see him look at my DMs like, who is this guy? Who is this guy hitting me up? And I looked at his page and I looked at some of his highlights. I'm like, oh, he's pretty tough. I'm like, and he's a flyweight, so I could get some work in with him too. And he's been asking me nonstop. Some of my friends that knew him said he's a good guy and he works hard. So I'm like, hey man, all right, if you want to come out, I'll get you in the front door and like introduce you to everybody I can. We can get as much work in as we can, and you can get your feet wet just like I had the opportunity to. So right now, until I decide to hang it up and move back, that's the best way I can do it, is kind of be that middleman and help people get their feet wet if they're serious about it, if I think they can like handle it. And it was like he has a good record, and watching his highlights, I could tell he was tough, and it was worth letting him come out here and inviting him out here to get some work in. It helped me out too because he's a flyweight and he's a hard worker and doesn't look for any ways out. So we got a lot of work in personally too, and he's a good guy. So that's definitely something I want to do. Moving forward to anybody that wants to get their feet wet and is serious about it. Like it's not like it's a free ride. Like obviously there's things that come with it, and you have to kind of wipe your own feet with it too and take care of yourself. But I can help people get out here and see what it's like because I've always said Ohio MMA like it's hard because out west is like the mecca and Vegas is the mecca for MMA, but there's so much talent in Ohio right now. Like there's people that should definitely be in the UFC that might never get the shot just because they don't have the connections or they don't know exactly which way to go about it. And like if I can be that middleman and help some of the talent in Ohio get an opportunity or get the connections that they need to get to the next level, then that would be a blessing because I got the same thing coming out here. Some Jessica I opened the doors for me and all that stuff. And if it wasn't for her, I wouldn't have been able to have any opportunities that I have. So if I can pass that down and give that back, then I will. And, like I said, Asher was really one of the first people that tried to come out here and get his feet wet, and he did good. So hopefully he gets to showcase some of that this weekend.
Yeah, and so I know you wrestled at Mount Union, but then you coached high school wrestling, and I know you mentioned wanting to give back. Is MMA coaching something that you think is in your future after you retire from the sport, or do you think that that's maybe not how you want to do it?
1,000%. That's what I want to do. I want to come back and start a gym in Ohio when I retire, and like I try and plant the seeds right now. But I know like from being a coach in wrestling, like you can't be the coach and the athlete at the same time. Like I can help people out right now, and I can give them my input, and like I can corner my friends, but I can't be the head coach right now. I can't run things for other people right now. I have to focus, be selfish for these next couple years in my career, and like be the athlete. But when it's all said and done, yes, I definitely want to come back to Ohio, start a gym, and share everything that I've got to experience out here, and hopefully help Ohio MMA grow as a whole too.
Yeah, and so with that, you are 31 years old, and now you mentioned the next couple of years. Is that something where you're like, I'm really going to try to focus on making it to the next level in these next couple of years, and go balls to the wall and try to make it? Is that still your goal? Is getting to the next level?
World champion. It's been my goal since I was 20 years old, 19 years old, and it's not changing. And like I know that I'm 31, but I also know that I'm still capable of it. And I think that if I stay active, I can get in this year. I mean, I think that's my plan, whether it's UFC, Bellator, whatever big league organization it is. I want to get in, within this next year and be a world champion as soon as I can. And I know I can do it. I know I'm capable of it. I've trained with countless, UFC champions, world champions from all over the planet, and the best fighters in the world every single day. Like today, I'm going to go spar with some of the best guys on the planet. And it's like, that's just training. You can't, make big assumptions off of training, but you can also, use it a little bit as a guiding stick. Like I know what I'm capable of. I know who I can run with, and I know what my style is. So yes, I want to be in the league before this year's over, and within the next 2 to 3 years, be a world champion. And like I said, bring that back to Ohio when it's all said and done.
Yeah, and so the next step in the process is your next fight. You're fighting Baby Hawk David Wilson. Are you a guy who does a ton of research on an opponent, or do you just say I'm going to do what I'm going to do, or what's your process in assessing a fight?
So like I've watched film. Obviously, I know that he was like the Street Beef champion or whatever. Whatever. I haven't seen any of his Street Beef fights. Like I'm not. I don't. I've learned in my journey so far not to underestimate anybody or anything like that that is gonna get in the cage with you. So like he has my utmost like respect and attention getting in there, but it's like I haven't watched any of his Street Beefs fights. I really don't care about any of that stuff. And like I've watched film on him as far as like his professional and some of his amateur fights. So I've watched film on him. I did that earlier. And my coaches have watched film on him so we can come up with like a general, all right, this is how we think it's gonna go out or like happen, like how he's gonna come out and how he's gonna approach it. So we can address that and then just focus on me being the best that I can be. Like, I mean, I watched film a couple weeks ago, but I probably won't until, I probably won't anymore because I'm more focused on being the best me that I can be when I get in the cage. If I can perform and execute my skill set, then it doesn't matter what he's good at or any of that stuff. But obviously we watch film and like been like, all right, this is what he's does in all of his fights, so we have to be aware of this and like work our game to execute our skills based off of that. So if that makes any sense, but
Yeah,
I
no, that definitely does. One thing that I always think is interesting is guys coming from out of state. I mean, obviously, you're coming back home, but for a local event, you're not. It's not UFC and or PFL level. So, what's your process? Kind of take us through like the day of like flying out to back to Ohio to Cleveland. How much are you having to worry about things like weight cut and still trying to get in and train and things like that? Like what's like the last like few days look like leading up to the fight?
So, we this is gonna be pretty similar to my fight before because everything went pretty well. Um, Pretty much we're leaving Thursday night. We get in or Thursday. I leave Vegas Thursday at like 2 or 3 p.m. and we get into Ohio like 10 or 11 p.m. And one of my friends that lives like in Menor by the hotel that we're staying at is gonna run and get like groceries for us before he picks us up at the airport, and then just take us back to the hotel. If my coach wants to go do anything, he can go do whatever he wants. I'm just gonna sleep. I'll probably wake up, 10 or 11 a.m. on Friday, go cut weight around noon. Probably cut whatever I have to cut. It probably won't be anything crazy at Upgraded Industries, one of the gyms that's by the venue that we're at. Go cut my weight, go back to the hotel, recover for an hour or two, go to weigh-ins, go out to eat, come back to the hotel, rest, wake up in the morning, I'll eat breakfast, do a shake loose workout a couple hours before we head to the venue, then just relax, do some visualization and like mindfulness stuff before we head to the venue, and then go showcase the skills and show out and have a good night in Cleveland. I try not to overdo it because it's like I've been to Ohio so many times and stuff like that that it's just a 3 day business trip. So that's the way I look at it. And like going into fight week and all that stuff, like I'll train and I'll work out, but there won't be like any hard live or anything like that. It'll just be about like, breaking a sweat, doing some drills to make sure my skills are sharp and like, the muscle memory's on point with everything, and, just feel good as possible. And, obviously I'm water loading and doing my weight cut at that point. And, it's just about feeling good and keeping your body as optimal as possible. Like these last week, this week, last week and this week are like my hardest weeks of training. Next week's still pretty high, but we like monitor the live a little bit more and monitor the sparring a little bit more just so I can be healthy going into fight week. So, and then fight week's just pretty chill, and we fly out Thursday night and cut weight Friday, show out on Saturday.
Yeah, and what do are you a guy who likes being the? I mean, obviously you like being the main event, but what's the waiting like? Because you're obviously not gonna. I mean, you probably know maybe a couple of guys on the card, but I'm sure if you're main event, you're gonna be just in the back chilling. But what's it like waiting those multiple hours to fight?
I mean, it depends. Like, dude, last time I slept from like I slept until I got my hands wrapped. Like we did the fighter meeting and I just went back and put my headphones on and passed out until, I got my hands wrapped and started warming up. And that was how it was last time. Like I've competed since I was 6 years old. So it's like I've learned, it's another lesson that I've learned. Like I've gone to the venue early and didn't fight till 11:30 p.m. and didn't take my headphones with me and was like going crazy for 6 or 7 hours. But now, if I take my headphones with me and just kick my feet up, I can chill until, it's time to get my hands wrapped and start warming up. And then it's just another day, in the office. It's 15 minutes in the office.
Yeah.
So and don't get me wrong, like, if anybody ever tells you, like, oh, like, it doesn't matter, like, I don't get nervous or anything like that, they're lying out of their teeth. Obviously, I don't know if you've ever fought before or competed before, but it's like, that's a lie. But I've competed my whole life. So it's just like another day in the office for me. I try and make it as similar as it would be for like a sparring day or like a hard training day or whatever, as far as mentally goes.
Yeah, I think that's what fascinates me the most about local MMA is you've got guys from their first amateur fight where you can see the like deer in the headlights when they go in, and
Yeah.
you've
Oh,
got
yeah.
guys who you're like, man, and the thing I've been around the sport long enough now, you can usually see in a guy's first or second fight, like, yeah, this guy has it, and more often than not, I'm like, yeah, I've been right about a lot of the fighters that I've seen in their first or second fight, um, and it's from there, it's a matter of like everything going right, all the mental things, like, because a lot of guys, that's the hardest part, I think, right? So, that always fascinates me, a guy who was able to sleep before going out and fighting in a cage. Yeah, that I just always, I mean, I think it makes it's a little bit easier to kind of know, like, if you're local guy on a local card, or even if you're driving in or something like that. But being there and having to stay multiple days, I was just curious kind of what the process was like.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so you are fighting July 13th, a couple of weeks, main event live MMA at Neo 3, which I didn't realize this, but there's actually a gym in the Revolution Fight and Fitness is
Yeah.
in the venue.
Yeah.
This is my first time going there, and I know there's a couple of other gyms like right down the street. So that's kind of a unique thing where it's like you're not fighting in the gym, but it's like a sports plant, I guess is what it's called, and there's an MMA gym in the
Yeah.
venue.
And I've actually trained there with Nikolai Gianti a plethora of times too, so I'm familiar with the venue and stuff. So that's another positive going into the event.
Yeah, so I'm excited. I'm actually going to be calling the fights. I think this is the
Okay.
first time I've called one of your fights. It's going to be on combatsportsnow.com if all your fans out in Vegas, and then anybody that can't make it locally. But yeah, man, anything else you want to mention going into the fight? Any shout outs, sponsors, any of that fun stuff?
Shout out to my team, Xtreme Couture, all of my coaches and all of my training partners that are always there for me, helping me and, lifting me up and guiding me, to be able to chase this crazy dream. Shout out to all of my sponsors. I have a bunch of sponsors that came together so I could, put as much time into this training camp as I can. Shout out to all of them. Shout out to all my people in Ohio that are going to be showing up or tuning in to the event. Shout out to you guys. You guys make me excited to be able to do this. And shout out to you, David McKinney, for trying to uplift Ohio MMA and give us a voice. So shout out to you as well.
Yeah, thanks. Like I said, I just am a fan. So that's been a fan for a long time, and I really enjoy seeing the fighters from, like I said, the debut fighters to seeing a guy, go all the way through. Like I said, I was there for your amateur debut, and now we're
Crazy,
we're both a lot older.
right? That's crazy. I did not know that, but that's hey.
Yeah, those
Cheers to that.
RFO shows, man, back in the day
Maybe that's
were, yeah, some of
go
the
ahead.
best shows.
Say it again. I'm sorry.
I was gonna say, yeah, Matt Trukovich, his RFO shows were some of the best shows to go to. I mean, you knew, like, you're in it's basically like a metal building. It got super loud, and his shows always were great. Every single one that I went to.
Good old bingo hall. I mean, maybe you being there is a good sign. We're gonna get another highlight finish.
All right, man. July 13th, Maidman Promotions, Neo Sports Plant, Aleko Poinar, get the name right, Poinar, in the main
Yes, sir.
event against Baby Hawk. 125. That's one of my favorite weight classes. So thanks so much for joining me, man. And we will be back next week with another episode.
Thank you. Appreciate you, Dave. Take it easy.
Yep. Thank you.